Alright, here we are again with the Magnets. They're all here. All 31. All 31 teams in alphabetical order. I was asked by my stepson last night if I could name every NHL team. And I didn't pause. I didn't hesitate. I named them all. A through W. And he's like, wow. How many are there? I'm like, 31. I've been memorizing the order that the teams go in alphabetically since I was a little kid. I think that's part of the reason why I get upset when teams move or there's expansion. It's like, oh, now I gotta redo it all over again. It's not like the alphabet. The alphabet doesn't change. It's not like the W's like, all right, well, I'm at the start of the alphabet next week, so you guys are gonna have to get used to the change in the alphabet. So, with that tale of woe behind me, and whatever that guy just dropped behind him. Okay, so let's talk parity. And by parity, I mean P-A-R-O-D-Y, because I'm sober. So when you look at this league, you look at all 31 teams, there are fans of all 31 teams on this channel. One of the tricks I have is making sure that I address fans of every team as much as I can, depending on what the news is, what's going on. That gets a lot easier during the season. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff going on this season. I'm very excited about this coming season. So, during the period of this offseason, there's certain fan bases that have got the idea that I'm against their team. So, let's go ahead and as much as we can, and I don't know how long this video is going to take, so I'm going to put that out there. What about the idea that all of these teams are going to be contenders? And I want to say this too, that with parity being talked about, it's true. The same teams are still winning Stanley Cups. Chicago, LA, Pittsburgh. That's pretty much summarizing the last 10 years of Stanley Cups. You have, minus the Bruins sneaking in there, you have three teams pretty much running the table. So, I'm going to go through all 31 teams here. And I know I did this with Stanley Cup chances, but let's be... I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to take the point of view of that fan base for each of these, which is not easy. For Anaheim, Anaheim's a contender, as they've been a contender for a while, and the core is still young enough that absolutely they can go on a run this year. This could be it. Arizona's been down for a while. There's a lot of young bodies. There's a lot of reason to feel that the worst is over, that Arizona's on its way up. Boston, the core is older, yes. Chara is winding down, but with Carlo and McAvoy on the blue line, you've got Pasternak up front, as long as they get him signed. What's going on? And you've got a lot of potential excitement with your prospects. And Tuukka Rask is going to have a bounce back year. He has to. Buffalo. Jack Eichel has shown himself to be almost a point-a-game player despite poor health. With good health, he should be an 85 to 90-point player in a season. And that can only mean good things for Buffalo. Buffalo's gone a long way to fixing some of their roster issues this summer. And they also have a lot of prospects coming up, and things could turn around for them. Calgary. Calgary believes that Mike Smith is an upgrade over Brian Elliott. Calgary management believes that. And whether fans do or don't, that's a whole argument we're not going to have right now. The argument is this. They're trying to buy time to get to Gillies or Parsons. And this is where my personal opinion comes in. I think Gillies, sure, should be an NHL goaltender. Parsons, it's way too early to tell. With goaltenders, it takes longer. So, encouraging numbers in junior, sure. But the nice thing with Calgary is by picking up Hamnick this summer, it helps their defense. And their overall depth is pretty good. Carolina was on an upswing at the end of the year. Exciting young defense. Plenty of young guys who are only going to get better. At least they should. And they pick up Scott Darling, who should be a pretty solid upgrade for them in net. Chicago. They've won 3 Stanley Cups for a reason. They got Brennan Saad back, and there's a feeling that they're getting the band back together with Patrick Sharp and Saad coming back, and just a feeling that there's a lot of what's old is new again in Chicago. Colorado, last season, the 16-17 season, has to be bottom. It has to get better from here, and there's no way that the abysmal performances by all these players will be repeated. If Varlamov's back to full health, their goaltending will fix itself. So there's your reason to be optimistic if you're an Avalanche fan. Columbus, they made tremendous strides this past season. There's room for more growth. They didn't lose a ton due to expansion and due to free agency. They lost some, but not a lot. Nothing that they can't recover. Dallas, Ben Bishop, Mark Mathot, and I think there'll be some improvement from within. Fox has got room to grow in terms of his offense, and there's a lot to like there. Detroit, you could perceive what's been going on with Detroit and say, well, Jimmy Howard's healthy all year, and if him and Mrazek both play well, or at the very least if they're driving each other to play better, their goaltending will get better, and they've picked up a couple of faces like Daly should help on the blue line. Detroit maybe underachieved this past season, and if they're at full health, we'll see. Edmonton, Connor McDavid. Florida, they've got themselves back on the right track by going back to Talon. And again, this is fan point of view, and there's reason to be optimistic that one of the 2 goaltenders is going to be capable of playing 50 games, winning a bunch of games, and making a difference. Kings, you've got to be optimistic if Jonathan Quick's back. You've got to be optimistic as well that Anze Kopitar can't be this bad for 2 years in a row. That he'll get it together, he's young enough, and that there's enough guys coming up like Kempe, there's enough guys on the blue line that you're capable of bouncing back as a team. Minnesota had a fantastic season this past year. No, the playoffs didn't end the way they wanted them to, but there's a lot of youth coming up too. There's a lot of reason to be happy about what Minnesota has now and for the future. Montreal, adding Drouin up front could be huge. According to Max Pacioretty, it's great. And if Drouin helps to get that offense going, it's going to be good. The question then becomes one of, can the blue line make up for the loss of Markov and the fact that Sergachev isn't coming up. That he's now Tampa property. So there's sort of that there, but there's reason to believe that Montreal can turn it around. And again, injuries play a role there too. Nashville, they went to the final. The team hasn't appreciably lost anybody really. I mean, they've lost Fisher, but they picked up Bonino, so that should be a wash. Their blue line's still going to be great. And if something happens with Rene, I believe Saros is going to be fine. Jersey sort of bottomed out this past season. They will get better. Corey Schneider should get better. If Heischer's ready to go and Heischer's in that lineup, they're going to score more goals, and that's really the key issue for the Devils. The Islanders, they were one of the better teams towards the end of the season. Should they get John Tavares signed long-term and they figure out what's going on with their building, there's no reason they can't contend for and get into the playoffs. Rangers, Lundqvist, one of the best goalies of all time. Picking up Shattenkirk could be a steal. And again, they haven't really appreciably lost a lot in terms of top-end talent. And if Zibanejad develops, you've got yourself a fix at center. Really, it's going to come down, a lot with the Rangers is going to come down to whether or not their center issue can be resolved from within. Ottawa, they overachieved this past season, but they showed just how much fire Erik Karlsson has for the game. Kyle Turris had kind of a coming out party this season. And the tandem of Mike Condon and Anderson, one of the best in the league, bar none. Philly has some really good young prospects coming up on the blue line. Giroux kind of had a setback year. You got to bet on a bounce back, and if Giroux's playing at the top of his game, Philly can make the playoffs. Pittsburgh, they've won 2 in a row, 2 Stanley Cups in a row, so there's your reason for optimism right there. St. Louis has made lateral moves for the most part, but they didn't really need to fix a lot. And if they're going to give Sobotka every chance to succeed, and rumor has it coming out of camp that St. Louis is going to possibly put him on the wing on their top 6, at least try it in training camp. If they're willing to play around with the chemistry a little bit and get it just right, they can improve big time. San Jose is a steady-as-she-goes team. They always seem to have young guys coming up, good young players. And even though I don't really grade their prospects list to be great, they usually prove everybody wrong, because usually there's 1 or 2 steals on a prospect list for the Sharks. Tampa, if Stamkos is good to go, this team is good to contend. Toronto, what's not to like in Toronto right now? Everything is perfect in Toronto. I know it's the offseason, so of course it's going to look perfect, but really, they're coming off of a huge bounce-back season with so many rookies who played very well. They add Marleau. There's so many things they're doing that look pretty damn good from the inside and from the outside. Vancouver, I know there's a lot of naysayers, and people may mock the whole in 2 to 3 years Vancouver will be better than Ottawa or Edmonton and Toronto, which has become a meme on this channel. For good reason it gets mocked, but I also think that Vancouver gets underrated. And I think they're going to be more competitive than a lot of people think, including Canuck fans. I don't necessarily want to change my prediction they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league, but I think they're at least going to be competitive. I think there's going to be a lot of close games. They're going to lose a lot of close games. The year that Toronto drafted Auston Matthews, they were bad, but a lot of their losses were by 1 goal, and that makes a big difference. Vegas, expansion team, there's no pressure. Every win feels like it's this fantastic new experience, and they made the right moves in net. I think Fleury and Pickard, I think they're really in good shape. The Capitals, the Capitals lost a lot, but again, their system's usually pretty good, and they've still got Braden Holtby in net, and they've still got Ovechkin up front, and Backstrom up front, and there's a lot of good top-end talent. As long as they can fill it in and complement it with the right guys, they may not experience that much of a dip this year at all. Winnipeg, it's probably going to come down to goaltending again. That is really where Winnipeg failed this past season. Winnipeg had the offense to make the playoffs. I think they had the defense to make the playoffs. So if Mason can give them average goaltending, I'm talking like a 914, 915 save percentage, this is a team that can make the playoffs. This is the challenge of having a channel like this and having to say, okay, this team's going to make the playoffs and this one isn't. This team has a great prospects list, and I think it's better than this one. It's not a matter of me talking down any given teams. Because if it was, then, Anaheim's always at the bottom, Edmonton's always, or Montreal's always at the bottom, and the Kings. And that's not how it works. It really isn't. I do my best to be as fair as possible in regards to every team in the league. Because when I present these videos to you and I talk about this kind of thing, I want to be as impartial as possible. Let me know if you're a fan of one of these teams and you feel like you have some other reason to be optimistic this season than provided, like some, and it can be just a feeling you got, whatever you got. Let me know in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And 31 teams. It's going to be 32. And I honestly think it's going to be Kansas City. I think the NHL wants Seattle. I think Seattle wants in, but I've got a feeling it's going to be more Midwest than West. So Kansas City, Milwaukee kind of area. You can let me know what you guys think about that as well. And I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you so much for watching.